Hey guys, welcome to the Babbling Pastors podcast. How are you doing? My name is Michael.
And I'm Rob.
Hey, he's Rob. And a quick word for our sponsor, Birch Gold. No, I'm joking. So,
This year is volatile. Things are going on all the time. You can't trust anything, and the stock market is going up and down all the time. You can't. So you need to diversify. Birch Gold. Was that a pretty good impression?
You know that way too well. Holy cow. Hey. Well, I'm not telling you where that's from.
ExpressVPN.
If you know, you know. So, oh, wow. This is the last episode. Sorry. I got to calm myself. I'm still laughing a little bit about that. So, today is the last episode of this month. We're talking about growing in. Prayer was the first week. The second week was Bible reading. The last week was discipleship. And this one, so discipleship, that was a pretty heavy episode. It involves a lot. This one is probably just as heavy, just the opposite way. Because last week we were talking about discipleship and getting involved and making sure you're doing that and, growing with other people. And this week we're going to talk about really more of, I don't know how I would define it, isolation. How you used a word that was much better than that. I can't remember it.
Solitude.
There you go. Yeah. And this one, I'm glad Rob came up with it because the other ones, they're all principles of a Christian's life as far as things that Christians do. But I think one that's ignored a lot, and I'm really glad he brought it up, was this solitude, this making time to be quiet and just be, just quiet. Your phone's off.
Yeah.
There's no music. There's no social media. It's just you and your thoughts. And for some
Wait,
people,
what?
Yeah. So for some people, that is terrifying because there's some of the reasons people listen to music or have stuff is so they don't have to be alone in their own head, because that's a terrifying place. And then for other people, the reason you don't do that is because you'll literally fall asleep because you don't have a lot of thoughts. So I found that it's one way or the other. Either you're terrified of your own humanity and your own thought process, or you literally fall asleep. So it's one or the other. Mm-hmm. So one of I think this is an ignored one oftentimes, because most of the times people will be like, well, that's for my prayer time, isn't it? Or that's for my Bible reading time, isn't it? So how would you, I think the last episode, we were talking about discipleship and how important it is to have that definition. So what would be the working definition of solitude and what it's for that we're talking about today?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think one thing,
loose definition.
Yeah. So to me, it's part of prayer, right? Mm-hmm. And there are times that you certainly need to talk to Dad, right? Mm-hmm. But then there are times that you just need to shut up. Just shut up and listen. And you can't do that. I have no problem clicking on the do not disturb button on my phone and my computer and my iPad right now when we're recording, because I don't want to be interrupted. But we live in such a world where, like, when we're done recording right now, it's super easy to just flip those buttons right back on. And because I don't want to be interrupted during this. This is valuable. It's important. But I don't necessarily view that or think that way when it comes to my time with God. In fact, it can be a lot more difficult, frankly. When we even talked about when we were doing Bible reading, right? Using your phone to hear it audibly, right? So there are challenges there, right? When we're trying to have time specifically with God in prayer, scripture reading, whatever, it is difficult to just shut life off, shut the rest of the world off, because we have this, it's actually built into us at this point in history that we just need to we have this need for being connected.
Yeah.
Right.
What's the next thing? What's the next thing?
Man, like when I think about like the fact that 100 years ago, which as far as time goes is not a lot. 100 years ago, you didn't have anything even close to like that. If Paul went into town with the wagon and the horses, right, like you didn't know if he was dead or alive or otherwise until he came back, like the next day or hours later, right? And now, like my kids have kids messengers, so we can contact them if we're out of the house for a minute, like it's crazy the level of just connectivity that we feel like we need, and some of that is good development, right? I mean, we do live in a world that is less safe now, right? When you're in a populated area, it makes sense, lock your door, right? So the world has changed a little bit, and I feel like it some of that is good, that we have this connectivity and ability to contact one another. But an example is there are times that my wife and I will be in communication via text or whatever so much during the day that when I get home from work, like we really don't even have anything to talk about anymore. You know what I mean? Because we've talked the whole day at some level.
There's nothing to catch me up on.
Right. So, and for some men that might be a godsend. I don't know, but with our time with God, it's super difficult unless it has become a spiritual discipline, and it's something that you just do. It's a spiritual practice. It's difficult, and you don't even think about it a lot of times. And you can be reading the Bible on your phone and on Facebook 5 minutes later because you've been distracted because this notification or that notification has come up, and it's like, oh, that person, I got to know what they said. Yeah.
I can swipe up and over. I'll be right back.
Oh, brother. Yeah. You can't multitask time with God. It's just not a thing. So, but that solitude is actually super important. And I think probably of the 4 things we've talked about this month, by far the most overlooked.
Yeah. Well, and it's ironic that you said that because I literally got a prayer chain request as you were talking. That was the ding. So I thought my phone was on silent, but it wasn't. But
well, I didn't hear it. So
oh, you did it? Oh, I just gave myself away, man. But no, I think you're right, because what happens is whenever so that's why cars have one of the reasons cars have radios because you don't want to sit in your car and not listen to something. Yeah. In fact, that's why XM radio, right? So, hey, you can have radio without commercials because why would you want those? And so it's just this continual flow of music. And we do not like, I mean, you talk, and I mean, not to throw, teenagers under the bus and sound like an old crotchety old man here, but you try to take an iPad or phone away from a kid, and well, good luck. They don't know what to do. They do not know what to do. And some adults, by the way, don't know what to do either. Myself is in that category. When I get home, what I try to do sometimes is put my phone somewhere where I can't get to it so that I have to do something. And also to condemn myself a bit just to show you that I'm not real good at this. The other day, I wanted to finish this show with my daughter because it was a really important show to her. I wanted to finish it with her. And she looked me in the eye before we went in the other room. She goes, leave your phone, because she knew that I would probably get on it at some point. So kudos to her for that. So, I mean, it's just this thing that was a gut check. That was a week ago and it's still convicting me. So it's one of those things where, I mean, obviously we all need to do a better job at it. So how do we do it? Well, I think one of the things is, like you said, you make it to where it's your do not disturbs are on. It's a purposeful time set apart to where, like, it's now that I know that I've left my phone in the other room, right? So I can't just pick it up. It's a time where you set it apart because we're really bad at being quiet, like incredibly bad at being quiet. We don't know what to do. Now, I mean, there's times before, like, we'll just be in the car as a family going somewhere, and if like we're all done talking, like the default position is we need to turn this radio on. Like, we just don't know how not to do something. So I think we can really learn from, I mean, so people came before us that didn't have technology that specifically worked into their day. Not that you need to be a monk or something, but specifically worked into their day, times where they sat in silence, like you said, to, while you're praying or just while you're sitting there. There's some people I know specifically that will, during their prayer time, they pray, and then they just have 10 or 15 minutes after that, they just sit there. So that if there is something that God needs to bring to mind, or if there is something that, they're dealing with, that they have that moment where there's nothing distracting them and they're just there. I'm not quite to that point because I haven't worked that into my day, unfortunately, but they find it to be such valuable time. And when they talk to you about it, that because it is this time where there's nothing else that can get to them. And I have to envy, and I'm trying to do this better as a husband, but especially if, like, and maybe you can relate to this, my wife stays at home, she homeschools the kids. So I have to actively have in my head that I need to make that time available for her as well. So there's days, and then the cool thing is there's days sometimes where I'll come home and she's like, they're yours. I'm going to have a mommy day. And to where she goes out and she has a moment to where she can do what she needs to do and have that time for herself, so that, with the kids not crawling all over. And I think sometimes we need to, just as Christians, have that same mentality, in the sense where we go, okay, there's all this going on. I need to make this time, like, to set up a schedule. Sometimes, I mean, look, you're a dad, I'm a dad. There's times where I just have to be like, this is the time we're doing this. Just like with this podcast, my family knows that on Wednesday mornings at some point during the month, I'm not going to be available. And I think one of the things that we need to, the same way we make that time out for work, or, playing video games, or, making time for date nights, all of that is very important stuff. Do we do the same thing? And I'll convict myself right now. I don't have quiet time like I should. This solitude, which is important, I think, and would be, a good thing to have in our lives, where we actually schedule it like we do everything else. Where we sit down. I mean, here, the most time I do have, again, my commute is super long. So I was telling, actually, we didn't do this on air, but my commute is about to get 30 minutes longer. So maybe that's God's gentle way of saying, hey, here's 30 minutes where you need to shut up. But it's just a matter of where there are times where, after the Bible done, I have to intentionally tell myself, I'm not turning on a podcast. I'm not turning on the radio. I'm just going to sit here. Now, it doesn't happen a lot, but there are times where that happens. And I'll tell you, in those times, there's stuff that gets brought up where I have to be like, oh, I didn't apologize to this person, or I told these people I was going to pray for them. I've totally forgot. And it's only in that silence, where there's not all this other noise coming in and distracting me, where those things come up. So here's your podcast on solitude that I don't do a lot.
It's interesting in scripture how often prayer and solitude are mixed in the same. It's like the same thing. In scripture, you can come away with, you can't have one without the other at some level, right?
Yeah.
Like in all these examples that Jesus gives, when you pray, go hide and do it. And when the Gospels repeatedly tell us that Jesus would withdraw to a desolate place, or would go away from everything, right? Go away from people. And to be clear, when it says that Jesus withdrew from people, in our context, that means shutting the notifications off, not being able to be in contact with anyone or anything else, and just being alone with God. And you mentioned that some folks that just like they'll have prayer time and then wait and just have silence time after that. And I think it's also okay to slow your prayers down. Right? Like, think about it, like what you're doing, what prayer is having a conversation with God. And the most annoying people on the planet to have a conversation with are the people who won't shut up long enough to even breathe.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's not a conversation. That's just somebody talking at you. Right? And I think sometimes not that God gets annoyed with you because you pray, but sometimes we forget that that's how conversations work. Like
I'd like to answer. You need to be quiet.
right. Yeah, it's it sometimes like it's okay to just be in prayer and be in a place or in not and look not everybody is a pastor that has an office that I can lock the door, I can shut the lights off, I can have worship music playing in the background, or I can have a light, a lamp on and sit in the dark before it gets light out, which is North Dakota this time of year. I mean, I don't know. I have
an hour of good light.
Bro, sunset is at like 4. So uh, it, not everyone is in that position, right? And I realize that. But everybody has honestly kind of this spiritual obligation to not only God, but to yourself, right? To take time away from all the crap in life and just be still and know that I'm God, he says, right? Like you can't be still if you won't shut up and if you have notifications blaring. Like there's something to be
the funny thing,
being alone with
the
God.
context of that also is with the world, the world falling apart and nations at war, and that comes directly after. So the context of that is specifically, hey, everything around you is falling apart. I need you to be quiet.
Yeah. Which is ironically familiar right now in all of our lives. And there are lots of scriptures that basically tell us, shut up, be alone with God and pray. Like when you pray, it is we do pray. I do pray throughout the day when I'm doing other things, right? You take a second and go, thank you for this, right? And or why are you allowing this or whatever, right? Like you do have moments throughout the day when you're still connected at some level and you might pray sometimes in your head or whatever else. But there does need to be, we see this example in the life of Jesus, who came to show us how to do life, right? We see this example in his own life where he would certainly be missional. He would certainly do the things and preach the gospel and all the things that we would harp on people to do. But also repeatedly, he would go away alone, away from the disciples that he had, away from those closest to him. He would get away from all of it and just be with God. And sometimes past the Bible reading and prayer, meaning me just talking, it's okay to just pray a minute and then be quiet before you continue to pray. That's what conversations are. Plus, this is just a side note. Like I find when I'm praying, if I'm not doing something like that, it just becomes words that I'm saying pretty quickly, right? It's just like, oh, thank you for the sky today, and for breathing, and which are all good things to say, right? But it can become really quickly just some stuff
You're
I'm
just finding,
saying, and
you're just finding something to talk about.
Yeah, I'm not actually talking to God as if I'm talking to God. I'm just praying as if I'm talking to the wall or something. But being intentional about silence and just being quiet and solitude and not having dings on your phone while we're recording
my watch.
the podcast.
Okay, so here's the thing. This is the most ironic thing in the world. My watch has said over there this entire time that we've recorded every other podcast, and this podcast is the time that my watch is going off like crazy. What?
Boom.
Gosh. I mean, seriously, it's been sitting in the same spot the whole time. And now it's going off.
Yeah.
Anyway, so wow, look like a big hypocrite here. So what? So
but to be fair, we're not trying to be in a moment of solitude right now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's okay. It's okay.
Well, now I know that if I want to be in a moment of solitude around the early morning time, that thing needs to go somewhere else. So I think one of here's the challenge that I would give in this is that try in the mornings not to to jump in and turn on the radio right away when you're driving to work, for example. Try to when you have a moment by yourself, not for the first thing to be to grab your phone. And I say that because when you were talking, I was thinking back to, you were talking about, just that deliberate time. I remember when I first started the job I have, the truck, because I drive a lot for work, the truck I had didn't have a working radio. So there was no choice. Like, you were just going to sit there. And just thinking back to that, there were a lot of times in those moments where your thoughts start to dwell. I mean, it tells you a lot about yourself, where your thoughts are going, what you're thinking about, what comes to mind. You go, wow, I didn't pray about that. I didn't think about that, because now there's nothing to distract you. I mean, you were literally sitting there doing a mindless task, and things, I mean, there will be things that the Lord brings to your mind, that will give you a really clear indication where you're at, spiritually, where you're at mentally, what you're thinking about. So that would just be my challenge. I mean, again, we all have to drive somewhere, or, well, most of us do. I don't know if you're, maybe some of you are working from home now, but the idea is that you're going to get in a car at some point, probably. And in those moments, it's so easy to turn on the radio, or when you get home, I mean, our lives are set up with literal seats in front of screens so that there's something there. So, like, I mean, just deliberate things. We deliberately, I'm not showing my living room right now to you because it's I need to clean a little bit, but our living room doesn't have a television in it, like, for a reason. Like, we deliberately do not have our TV in our living room, so that, when you sit down, you just have to awkwardly stare at each other, because, I mean, the way every home is set up right now is not only do you have a TV, we have it conveniently hung on the wall for you. I mean, like, it's somewhere where it's set up, and you probably have a pretty legit sound system too, so that when you're watching the thing, you can at least hear, like, Dolby Digital, right?
Yeah, you need to focus, baby.
Our whole life is set up like that. Same thing with our cars. I mean, the cars now come with, like, Bose audio systems, as if you need that in your car. Like, premium sound while I drive 15 minutes. So the idea is that
my commute is like 6 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah.
Well, mine's an hour. So the idea is that, like, we're so apt to, even for 6 minutes, right, to turn on a radio or something, because that's something that we at least don't have to sit in silence. So, I mean, that would be my thing, is like, find your life is going to be different than my life, different than Rob's life. Everybody's whole system of how you work out your day is different, but it's obvious that we all don't do this enough. I don't think there's somebody that goes, man, I haven't picked up my phone today. No, you've probably picked it up too much today. Apple even gives you this nice little, hey, you were on your phone this much this week.
Yeah.
Every Sunday morning before church, the Holy Spirit drops a notification in my phone. So, I mean, you even know how much you're on your phone a week. And so that's something that you can go, wow, okay, what can I do in my life to rearrange my living room, to rearrange my day, to where I have time specifically set apart? Because people go, well, I just don't hear God speak. Well, that's probably because you're on Facebook too much, Netflix too much. I mean, here, I'm preaching to myself. I just told on myself for the last 15 minutes. So it's one of those things where I think oftentimes we go, well, I don't know what does God want me to do in this situation? Well, dummy, he's not going to tell you when you're reading, gossip on Facebook, or when you're binging, the latest Mandalorian, which, by the way, is a pretty decent show. So, I mean, that's one of those things that you have to make that time.
Yeah. So funny thing before I go any further, since you're the meme guy, right?
Yeah.
I saw a meme on Facebook. I don't know. I might have even sent it to you. I'm not sure if I did. I sent it to a couple of people, but it had to do with kind of what we're talking about in a way. Like it's a picture. Yeah, it's a picture of a guy being loaded into an ambulance.
Yeah.
A guy's being loaded into an ambulance, and he asks them, "Are you taking me to the hospital?" And the EMT or whoever replies back to him and says, "No, you need real medical experts to help you. So we're taking you to the comments section on Facebook," or whatever it says,
Yeah.
But that's so true. Like how many? If sometimes I watch so for my other podcast, and just to kind of stay in the loop, I'll watch press conferences sometimes, or Senate hearings and that kind of thing, and I watch them live sometimes, or I watch videos that were live. And so you see the comments on the right hand side of the YouTube deal, and it's just like there's literally no way you could read them.
No.
Because it's just like and like I don't even know how people, like how connected we all are, and we all have so many opinions, and we all have so many opinions thrown at us like en masse, like all the time, all day long, right? And man, how helpful would it be to maybe just sit back, shut it all off, and actually be with God? Because if you're doing devotion time, or you're doing prayer time with those notifications on, and if you're the person who, and I'm not totally like griping at other people, I do this too sometimes, but if you're the person who's getting notifications and you find yourself when you're Bible reading or praying or whatever, like tapping on those and getting distracted, then what you're actually doing is getting alone with God and Facebook. Like that's what you're actually doing. And so you're not alone with God. You to be alone with God is to be with him distractionless, like where God is the only distraction in your life. And
it's like going on date night with your wife and bringing your phone.
Right. Yeah. Or the most annoying thing to me is when you go to, like, I go to lunch with people a lot as a pastor or whatever, and or the wife, right, which is another example of that. And you'll see people like when you're in a group of people and you're out to eat with another family or two or whatever, and someone's picking up their phone during the conversation and starting to scroll or something. It's like, dude, put it away, right? Like, it's just like, can you just be here for 5 minutes? And we're just in that's the world we live in, and we let that bleed over into God, our God time, and our relationship with him so much, and it's not helpful. It's not helpful at all. So solitude is super important.
Yeah. So I'm not at all super convicted right now about my entire days.
This is the most convicting one of all of them that we've talked about. For me. Yeah.
Good deal.
Because honestly, it's the most difficult one. In the world we live in, it's the most difficult one.
That's true. Well, because we all have a miniature little computer in front of us all the time. It has access to everything. That we can make a thousand reasons to why it would be okay to pick it up, because there you go. He's got. But so here's the thing. We'll end with this. Do you have anything to end with before I go?
Shut this podcast off when we're done and be alone.
Dude, that was exactly what I was gonna say.
Until next Wednesday. Then you need to connect.
No, that for real though, that would be the challenge. I mean, the challenge is, after this, if you've listened all the way through, you're a saint anyway. But if you've listened all the way through, get 15 minutes after this, just shut off and sit there and be in prayer and just be in silence. And I can guarantee you something will come to mind. I don't know what it'll be, but one way or another, it'll be very revealing to you as far as where your mind goes. It may very well be, I can't wait till this 15 minutes is over. And then guess what? There you go. That's a conviction in and of itself. Yeah. So,
and no matter what it is, you'll have something to pray about during like, honestly.
Exactly true. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. All right, guys. Well, thank you for listening, subscribing, watching. Welcome to 2021, or the last month of it. We appreciate you guys hanging along with us. We'll I got some stuff for next month. We'll see. I think it's going to be pretty interesting. I haven't told Rob yet at all. He doesn't even know. So I'll talk to you guys later.
I'm sure it'll be great.
Bye.